Before we crack open tonight's cursed can of content, I just want to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, and an extra sinister shout out to the loyal members of the Sinister Elite. You legends help keep the darkness alive. If you're enjoying the stories and want to take it a step further, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and consider joining the Sinister Elite by clicking that join button below. Members get access to creepy custom emojis and exclusive Sinister Elite badges that level up the longer you survive with us. It's like loyalty, but spookier. All right, lights off, headphones in, and let's summon something we'll all regret. I'll be the first to admit that my idea of getting away from it all usually involves a hotel pool, a strong Wi-Fi signal, and a breakfast buffet. But after my last job burned me out so badly I was twitching at the sound of email notifications, I decided to do something drastic. Rent a cabin in the Appalachian Mountains. The listing was on a shady-looking website, definitely not Airbnb, called retreatrustic.com. It had one grainy photo of a log cabin that could have been taken in 1973 and a description that boiled down to quiet, isolated, peaceful. For $150 a week, I figured I could deal with a little rustic charm. When I arrived, it turned out rustic charm was code for, your cell phone will die here, and so might you. The cabin sat on a gravel road that looked like it hadn't seen a car since the Clinton administration. Trees crowded so close it felt like they were leaning in to watch me. The air was still and heavy, with the kind of silence that made you feel like you were intruding. Cool, I muttered, dragging my bag out of the car. If Deliverance starts playing, I'm leaving. The front door was unlocked. Inside, it smelled like dust and something faintly metallic, like old pennies. Cobwebs laced the corners of the wooden beams, and a single rocking chair sat in the living room, angled toward the fireplace like it was waiting for someone. On the kitchen table was a folded piece of paper with my name written in looping handwriting. I opened it and found a list of rules. Lock the door before sundown, but do not use the top lock. Do not acknowledge the voices outside the cabin. Leave a plate of food on the porch every night. If the rocking chair moves, do not watch it stop. At midnight, you will hear someone knock. Do not open the door. I stared at the list, my skin prickling. Hilarious, I said to no one, dropping it back on the table. The owners got a real sense of humor. Still, the place was filthy, so I started cleaning. That's when I found it, a mop leaning against the wall in the kitchen. The handle was bent, the cotton strands stiff with age, but it still looked usable. I set it aside with the broom and dustpan. By the time the sun started to dip behind the trees, I was sore and sweating. I went to the door, about to turn the deadbolt, and froze. Top lock. It was automatic to lock both, but the rules. I locked the bottom one and stepped back. Not using the top lock because a creepy note told me not to, I said out loud, trying to laugh. Then came the voices. At first I thought it was the wind moving through the trees, but there was no wind. The voices were low and murmuring, like a conversation happening just outside the door. I grabbed my phone, no bars, obviously, and pressed my ear to the wood. I couldn't make out words, just the rhythm. Hiss, whisper, pause. Okay, nope, I muttered and backed away. I flicked on every light in the cabin, but the glow only made the windows darker, the trees closer. The rocking chair creaked once in the living room. I turned and watched it sway gently, back and forth. Settling, I whispered. Just settling. It slowed. I stared at it, my heart thudding. The rule slammed into my brain. Do not watch it stop. I spun around, facing the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter like it was a lifeline. Behind me, the creaking stopped. I didn't move until the clock over the fireplace ticked past 11:59. That's when the knock came. It was slow and deliberate, rattling the doorframe, like someone knew I was standing just a few feet away. I froze, clutching the bent mop handle in one hand without even realizing it. Knock, knock, knock. And then a voice, soft and sweet, spoke through the wood. "Please," it whispered. "I'm so cold. Won't you let me in?" The knocking stopped. I stood there with my heart trying to punch its way out of my chest, the bent mop handle clutched like a sword. My brain kept chanting the last rule: do not open the door. Then the voice came back, softer now, closer. "Please," it whispered. "It's so cold out here. I'm lost. I just need help." I backed up a few steps, my sneakers squeaking on the wooden floor. "Nope," I said out loud, because apparently I was the type to talk to myself under stress. "Not falling for it. I've seen this movie." The silence stretched until it felt like it was crushing me. Finally, I forced myself to breathe and shuffled toward the bedroom. The cabin only had one, and the bed looked like it belonged in a pioneer museum. I laid down, fully clothed, pulled the dusty blanket over my head, and told myself I'd laugh about this in the morning. But I didn't sleep. I don't know when the whispering voices outside the cabin stopped, but at some point the woods went dead quiet again. It was the kind of silence that made you strain your ears harder, because you could have sworn something was breathing just beyond the walls. I woke up with sunlight stabbing my eyes and the overwhelming feeling that I'd made a mistake coming here. "This is fine," I told myself as I stumbled into the kitchen. "Totally fine. Normal cabins always come with creepy lists of rules, right?" That's when I noticed the porch plate. The third rule said, "Leave a plate of food on the porch every night." I hadn't done that. "Aw, crap," I muttered. The kitchen had exactly 3 cans of soup, a bag of stale crackers, and a fridge that hummed like it was trying to pretend it wasn't dead. I grabbed a can of soup, opened it cold, and dumped it onto a plate I found in the cabinet. Then I cracked the door an inch and shoved the plate onto the porch. I used the mop handle to slide it all the way outside without stepping out. I don't know why, but it felt safer that way. When I shut the door, I noticed something scratched into the wood right at eye level. It was faint, like fingernail marks. "Don't starve us." I jumped back so hard I tripped over the broom and landed flat on my back. "Cool," I gasped. "Totally normal vacation." I decided to spend the day exploring the area, mostly because the cabin gave me the heebie-jeebies. The road wound deep into the trees, but the woods felt off, like they were watching me. I walked a mile before I noticed something strange. I hadn't seen a single bird, squirrel, or bug. No sounds at all except the crunch of my boots. I turned back fast. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, I was sweating even though the air had grown cold. I locked the bottom lock on the door just like the list said, and left the top one alone. I double-checked the plate on the porch. Empty. Something had licked it clean. "Glad you enjoyed it," I muttered. I was halfway to the couch when the rocking chair creaked. It was barely moving, just a slow, gentle sway like someone had brushed past it. I froze. The rule flashed in my mind. Do not watch it stop. But I couldn't move. I couldn't tear my eyes away as it slowed. Slower. And then it stopped. The air went icy cold. "Damn it," I whispered, stepping back. From the corner of the room came a low groan. It sounded human but wrong, too deep, like it was being dragged through stone. The chair moved again, this time hard, slamming into the wall. Something pale and long-fingered gripped the top rail. I stumbled backward until my shoulders hit the door. Nope, 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 nope. A shadow peeled itself from the rocking chair, crawling low to the ground. Its head jerked unnaturally, like it didn't know how to work its own neck. I grabbed the nearest thing at hand, the mop, and jabbed it toward the thing as it crept closer. It shrieked when the frayed end brushed its chest. Not a normal scream. More like a burst of air from a cave that had been sealed for centuries. It recoiled and vanished back into the chair, which went still like nothing had ever happened. I stood there shaking, the mop handle trembling in my hands. Then the knock came at the door. Knock, knock, knock. And the same voice, soft and sweet. Please. I'm so hungry now. Won't you open the door? I backed away from the door, the mop handle clutched like it was a holy relic. My knuckles were white. Nope, I whispered, shaking my head. Not opening. No way. The voice on the other side sounded like it was smiling. Don't you want to see me? I've been waiting for you. It dragged out the last word like it was tasting it. I bolted into the bedroom and slammed the door shut. Not that it would do much good if that thing outside decided to break in, but it made me feel like I had a fighting chance. I sat on the bed in the dark, gripping the mop like it was a spear. My heart was hammering so hard it hurt. And then the scratching started. It was faint at first, like someone running their nails down the outside of the cabin walls. Then it got louder, circling the cabin, scraping, scraping, scraping. Something whispered just outside the window. We're so hungry now. I pulled the blanket over my head like a 5-year-old. It didn't help. At some point, exhaustion won. I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, sunlight was searing my eyes. I stumbled out into the main room and immediately noticed the plate on the porch. It was back on the table, completely clean. No crumbs, no smears, just sparkling, like it had never been used. And next to it was a new note, written in that same looping handwriting as the original list. You missed the offering. One more mistake, and we'll have to take what we're owed. My stomach flipped. Oh great, I muttered. I'm in some kind of murder Airbnb. I had no food left except a half-empty box of crackers. I scraped them onto the plate and slid it onto the porch using the mop handle, like I was feeding a crocodile. That's when I heard footsteps on the gravel driveway. I froze. A man stepped out of the trees, thin and pale as a ghost, with a ragged beard and clothes that looked like they'd been worn since the Civil War. He stopped at the edge of the porch and tilted his head at me. You're not supposed to be here, he said. His voice was raspy, like he'd smoked 100 packs a day. Yeah, no kidding, I muttered. Can you tell me what the hell is going on? He glanced at the plate of crackers. You didn't bring enough food. They'll be angry. Who's they? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer, his bare feet crunching on the gravel. I grabbed the mop and brandished it like a sword. Whoa, don't come any closer, man. He stopped. Something flickered across his face like recognition. You're using that, he said softly. Smart. It keeps them away. For now. What are you talking about? I demanded. But before he could answer, a rocking sound came from inside the cabin. I turned just in time to see the chair in the living room moving, hard, back and forth, as if someone was sitting in it and pushing off the floor with all their strength. The man's eyes went wide. You watched it stop, didn't you? I might have, I admitted. He stepped back, shaking his head. Then it's too late, they'll take you tonight? My mouth went dry. What do I do? How do I stop it? The man glanced at the woods like he expected something to leap out at any second. You follow the rules exactly, or you run, but you won't get far. He turned and started walking back into the trees. Wait, I called after him. Who are you? What are these things? He stopped and looked over his shoulder. His eyes were hollow, haunted. They were here before us, he said. Before the mountains. They're older than hunger. And then he was gone, swallowed by the trees. I slammed the door and locked the bottom lock. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. The sun was already dipping behind the ridgeline. Night was coming again. By the time the last sliver of sun vanished behind the mountains, I was a wreck. I'd double-checked the list of rules at least 20 times. Bottom lock only? Check. Plate of food on the porch? Check, though it was pitifully small. Rocking chair? Crammed in the corner facing the wall so I didn't have to look at it. The mop was in my hands again, because apparently this rotting stick was my only line of defense. The woods outside came alive after dark. At first it was just the usual rustle of leaves, But then came the low murmurs, the wet dragging sounds, the occasional crunch of footsteps that never got closer, but never went away either. I tried to stay calm. I tried to tell myself I was fine. Then the knocking started. Knock, knock, knock. I stood in the middle of the cabin, paralyzed as the voice slipped through the door like mist. "You don't have enough food for all of us," it whispered. I swallowed hard. "Sorry?" The voice changed. Higher. Closer. "Let us in, and we won't take you." "Nope," I whispered. The rocking chair scraped against the wall. I whipped around. It was moving. Hard. Something was in it. "Don't watch it stop," I told myself, squeezing my eyes shut. A soft laugh came from the corner, raspy and childlike. "You're learning, but not fast enough." I backed into the kitchen, groping for anything useful. There was nothing, just old utensils, chipped dishes, and the mop I already had. Then the voices outside started calling my name. My stomach turned. I hadn't told anyone my name. The door rattled. The top lock, the one I wasn't supposed to use, jiggled like invisible fingers were trying to pry it open. "Open the door, Jason," a voice hissed. "We just want to talk." I clutched the mop so hard the wood bit into my palms. "You're not coming in," I said, my voice shaking. "Whatever you are, you're staying out there." The laughter that followed was like 100 voices at once, echoing through the cabin. "Foolish little thing," they whispered. We were already inside. The kitchen light flickered. Something cold brushed my ankle. I jumped back with a yell and swung the mop blindly. The frayed cotton end slammed into something that screeched like a boiling kettle. The sound was so loud I nearly dropped the mop. A shadow skittered across the floor and vanished into the corner. I was panting so hard I felt dizzy. "Not tonight," I whispered. "Not tonight, you freaks." Then the rocking chair stopped. I hadn't looked. I'd kept my eyes away, just like the rules said, but now the silence that followed was worse than the noise. Something breathed against the back of my neck. I spun around and jabbed the mop. The handle connected with empty air, but I heard the hiss of something retreating. "You won't last," the voice whispered, so close I could feel it vibrating in my teeth. I ran for the bedroom and slammed the door shut, shoving a chair under the handle for good measure. I sat on the bed, mop in my lap, every muscle tight. The cabin was quiet again, but I could feel them pressing in on all sides, waiting. Hours passed. My eyelids grew heavy. Then came the voice, softer than ever, right outside the bedroom door. "Jason, you're not even following the rules anymore." I opened my eyes just in time to see the chair under the handle slowly slide away. The bedroom door creaked open, and something crawled through the gap. The bedroom door creaked wider, inch by inch, as if pushed by invisible hands. I scrambled back against the headboard, the mop raised like a spear. My pulse was hammering in my ears, so loud I could barely hear the thing crawling across the floor toward me. The light from the window caught its shape. I wish it hadn't. It was long and thin, its joints bending the wrong way as it dragged itself into the room. Its head was nothing but a stretched mask of skin with a mouth that hung too wide, full of jagged teeth that scraped together like broken glass. "Close the door," I croaked, like an idiot, as if it would listen. It tilted its head. Then it laughed, a sound like air escaping a grave. I jabbed with the mop. The frayed end touched its chest and it shrieked, the same cave burst sound as before. It jerked back into the shadows, retreating with unnatural speed. The door slammed shut on its own. I sat there shaking, mop clenched in both hands, until the first pale light of morning crept into the room. When I stumbled into the main cabin, I found the list of rules on the kitchen table. But something was different. Another line had been added at the bottom, scrawled in the same looping handwriting. "If you survive 3 nights, you belong to them." My blood went cold. 3 nights? I yelled at the empty cabin. That wasn't in the fine print. I was 2 nights in. I had 1 night left. I paced the cabin like a caged animal, trying to think. Running seemed stupid. These things weren't bound by walls, and the guy I'd met yesterday had basically said I'd never make it. But sitting here waiting for round 3 was even worse. That's when I remembered him, the ragged man from the woods. He'd known about the rules. He'd known about the creatures. I grabbed my shoes and bolted outside, scanning the tree line. The forest was silent again. Too silent, but I followed the gravel driveway down the mountain. It didn't take long to find him. He was crouched by the creek, washing his hands in the icy water. He looked up when he saw me, his hollow eyes narrowing. "You came back," he rasped. "I need your help," I said. "What are these things? How do I stop them?" He shook his head slowly. "You don't. You endure, or you become one of them." "That's not good enough," I snapped. "There's got to be a way to end this." The man's cracked lips twitched into something that might have been a smile. "There is one way, but it's not survival you're after." "What do you mean?" He leaned closer. "They're bound by hunger. If you starve them, they'll scatter. But to starve them, you'd have to deny them their meal tonight. Break the ritual. Risk everything." I hesitated. "If I don't feed them, they'll kill me, right?" He nodded once. "And if I do feed them, I'm theirs?" Another nod. I felt sick. The man stood and stepped back toward the trees. "Make your choice. Just know. They're already counting the hours." Then he melted into the forest like smoke. By the time I made it back to the cabin, the sun was already sinking behind the mountains. One night left. One impossible choice. I stood in the middle of the cabin with the list of rules in one hand and the mop in the other, my mind spinning. Feed them, and I belonged to them. Starve them, and they'd probably tear me apart. The sun was already bleeding out behind the mountains, casting the trees in jagged black silhouettes. The forest was so quiet it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. "Okay," I whispered, pacing. "You either die quick, or you get eaten slow later. Great options. Love it." I glanced at the chipped plate sitting on the counter. Normally, this would be the moment I'd scrape whatever food I could find onto it, slide it onto the porch, and pray. But the man's words burned in my brain. "You starve them or you're theirs." I slammed the plate into the sink. It shattered into 3 jagged pieces. "No food tonight," I said aloud, even though my hands were trembling. I locked the bottom lock on the door, making sure to leave the top lock untouched. Then I shoved the couch against it for good measure. The mop was leaning in the corner, its bent handle and frayed cotton head looking completely useless. I picked it up anyway. The first knock came just after dark. Knock. 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 I gripped the mop like a spear and didn't move. The voice slipped through the cracks in the door like smoke. "Jason, where's our meal?" I didn't answer. A second voice, lower, angrier, hissed. "You can't hide from us. We're hungry." "Good," I whispered. "Starve." The walls groaned as if something huge was pressing against them. The rocking chair scraped violently across the floor in the living room. I kept my eyes averted. "You're already ours," the voices whispered in unison. Then came the sound of wood splintering. The couch I'd shoved against the door screeched across the floor like it weighed nothing. The bottom lock popped. The door creaked inward, and they came in. I didn't see all of them at once, thank God, but I saw enough. Pale shapes slinking low to the ground, jaws that unhinged too wide, fingers so long they curled like scorpion tails. I jabbed the mop at the first one through the doorway. The frayed cotton end brushed its chest and it screeched like it was being burned. The sound made the others hesitate. I swung again, screaming like a lunatic. "Back! Stay back!" The mop was useless as a weapon, but for some reason it hurt them. Maybe it was the old wood. Maybe it was the iron nail poking through the head. I didn't care. I jabbed and swung, shoving them toward the door. One of them leapt at me. I swung with everything I had. The mop's handle snapped in half, the frayed head spinning off into the darkness. I was left with a jagged wooden spear. The thing pounced. I rammed the broken handle forward on instinct. It went straight through the creature's chest. It screamed, a sound that shook the walls, and the others shrieked in response. They scattered, clawing their way out the door and vanishing into the trees like shadows at sunrise. The one I'd skewered twitched once and then went still, its long, twisted body collapsing into a heap. I stumbled back, chest heaving. The mop, my only line of defense, was now in 2 pieces, dripping black ichor from the thing I'd killed. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat against the bedroom door, broken mop in hand, waiting for them to come back. They didn't. When sunlight finally filtered through the windows, the cabin was silent again. I crept into the living room. The creature's body was gone, but there was a note on the kitchen table, written in that same looping handwriting. "You've broken the pact. We will come for you at dusk." My hands shook as I picked it up. "No," I whispered. "No. I'm not staying for round 4. I grabbed my bag, the 2 pieces of the mop, and bolted out the door. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get off this mountain before the sun set again. I didn't look back. I barreled down the gravel driveway with my bag slapping against my back and the broken mop pieces clutched in each hand like twin weapons. The sun was still low, but every step felt like it was dragging me closer to dusk. The woods were too quiet again. No birds, no bugs, no wind. Just me and the crunch of gravel under my boots. Half a mile down the road, I saw movement. My heart leapt. Maybe the ragged man was back. Maybe he could help. But it wasn't him. It was them. Shapes flitted between the trees, pale and wrong, keeping pace with me. Long arms reached out, brushing against the trunks as if to remind me they could close the distance whenever they wanted. "Leave me alone!" I yelled, voice cracking. You lost!" They didn't answer. I pushed harder, running until my lungs burned. My brain was screaming at me to stop, but I didn't dare. I stumbled around a bend and froze. The road ended. Not in a fork, not in another driveway, just a cliffside drop into endless forest. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." The voices started up behind me, dozens of them whispering my name from the shadows. I spun around, gripping the mop halves like stakes. "Stay back! I swear I'll—" They stepped into view. Dozens of them, crawling, slinking, twitching like broken marionettes. Their mouths opened and closed in unison, teeth clicking like chattering bones. "You don't belong out there," they whispered. "You belong with us now." I backed toward the cliff edge, heart hammering so hard I thought I'd pass out. No, I'm not going to be one of you." One of them lunged. I swung the jagged mop handle and jammed it through its face. Black ichor sprayed my hands, burning like acid, but I didn't stop. Another came at me, and I swung the other half like a baseball bat. I fought like a cornered animal, screaming with every strike. Each hit made them recoil, hiss, but they kept pressing forward, overwhelming me. Then the sun dipped behind the ridge, and everything changed. The air went frigid. The shadows deepened until it felt like I'd fallen into the bottom of the ocean. The creatures stopped crawling. They stood, their twisted bodies elongating, their mouths stretching open until I could see nothing but teeth and darkness. One stepped forward. Its face was blank skin, but I could feel it staring straight at me. "You've broken the pact," it said, its voice a chorus of hundreds. "And now we'll keep you forever." I gripped the mop handles tighter, shaking, and did the only thing I could think of. I jumped. Branches tore at my arms and legs as I crashed through the trees, falling, until I slammed into the ground hard enough to knock the breath out of me. I lay there gasping, my vision swimming as the whispers filled the forest above. "Run!" I dragged myself to my feet and staggered through the underbrush. Every muscle screamed, but I didn't stop. I didn't even look up when I heard them moving through the treetops, following me. I just kept moving. By some miracle, I stumbled onto a dirt road. I followed it blindly, half-conscious, until headlights blinded me. A pickup truck screeched to a halt, and a farmer with wide eyes leaned out the window.
"Jesus, son, you look like hell,"
he said. "What are you running from?" I wanted to tell him. I wanted to scream that the things from the mountain were coming. But when I looked back, the forest was empty. Silent. I climbed into the truck without a word, It's been 3 weeks. I'm back in the city now, surrounded by people, noise, light. I sleep with every bulb in my apartment burning. But sometimes, right around midnight, I hear it. Knock. 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 And a voice, soft and sweet, whispers through the door. Jason, we're so hungry. I don't answer. I just clutch the broken mop handle I keep under my bed and pray they'll get tired of waiting. But I know they won't. They're older than hunger, and they never stop waiting.